to First Take. Thank you so much for hanging with us. Stephen A. Smith, Max Kellerman, I'm Molly Karen. We got some good NBA, gentlemen. NBA free agency.
Oh, a lot going
on. Coffee and tea's ready. Who's better than us?
Let's go.
You want to do it?
Kawhi Leonard's better than us?
Mm-hmm. The Spurs are red hot right now. Thank you for the segue, Max Kellerman. Taking the Rockets down last night en route to their 8th straight win, the longest active streak in the NBA. Much of that success is courtesy of Kawhi Leonard, who put up 39 points. 6 rebounds, 5 assists, and a huge block. Leonard had 23 30-point games this season. This is the most
special. Obviously, the three, Harden makes threes, Kawhi makes threes, this guy makes threes, that guy makes threes, Steph makes threes, everybody does that. But I don't know who goes to the other end and does what he does. Not that many people on a consistent basis, an entire game, game after game. Kawhi wanted it badly. He went and took it.
So Kawhi balled, and when Pop speaks, we listen, and he talks about how special he is. Stephen A., where does Kawhi rank in the MVP conversation right now?
Believe it or not, I'm still going to say number 4. I have to say it. Kawhi Leonard is absolutely sensational. He's special. There's no doubt about it in my mind. But I'm still thinking about James Harden. I'm still thinking about Russell Westbrook, even though James Harden, who dropped 39 himself last night in the key pivotal moments, it was Kawhi's show. There's no doubt about that. But it's still James Harden for me. Russell Westbrook a close second. Obviously LeBron James with Cleveland and what he means to them, number 3. And Kawhi Leonard, number 4. Now, why do I say Kawhi Leonard number 4?
Yeah, why?
Well, I'm getting ready to break it down to you. Listen and learn. Here's the deal. As great as Kawhi Leonard is, here's what hurts him. And nobody has brought this up. You know what hurts Kawhi Leonard?
What?
Greg Popovich. Because he's established himself as so great as a coach. The impact that he has as a coach has enabled so many other guys to look better.
Like the Tom Brady, Bill Belichick?
So, well, I wouldn't go, again, I'm not going to go that far because Tom Brady is approaching 40 years of age. So he's been around long enough. Yeah. Even though Kawhi Leonard has been with the Spurs his entire career, he's still relatively young. And it was Tim Duncan's team, and it was Tim Duncan, Manu Ginobili, Tony
And there are
Parker.
people who take credit away from Tom Brady by pointing to Belichick at times.
So all I'm trying to say is that when you consider it from that perspective, in an odd about way, Greg Popovich actually hurts him and the market that he's living in. But I'm saying ignore the market for a second, because Greg Popovich can take guys, get them to play together and look fluid and have their precision elevated at a higher level than normal. When you think about James Harden, you can't help but think about Mike D'Antoni. And even though he had a great career in Phoenix, LA, and New York, respectively, was not necessarily the case. You look at Russell Westbrook, Billy Donovan's there, KD's gone. You take that into consideration. And then you look at LeBron because of the greatness of LeBron and how no matter who's coaching him, somehow, some way he manages to be great. And no matter how much respect we have for Tyronn Lue, and I'm a brother that has a whole lot of respect for Tyronn Lue because I knew what he was as an assistant. I talked to him a lot. He's a smart guy, very, very bright, and not only that, assertive. He's a man's man. But at the same time, LeBron has made Mike Brown look good. He's made a lot of coaches look good. And so when you look at it from that perspective, LeBron's LeBron. Kawhi is great as he is, as much as he has elevated himself. Popovich actually takes away from it to some degree because Popovich is so great and has established himself. You got to remember, just the other day, we acknowledged that the San Antonio Spurs had gotten to the playoffs for 20 consecutive years. And by the way,
that's incredible.
For 17 or 18 of those years, when Tim Duncan, do you realize that Tim Duncan only won less than 50 games in the season once in his career? Do you know when that was? During the lockout shortened season when there were only 50 games. And by the way, they went 37-13 that season. That's the only time Tim Duncan has won less than 50 games in his career. So again, we give Tim Duncan credit, but we also have to give credit to the greatness of Greg Popovich, and to a degree, that's what takes away from Kawhi.
You're not wrong. Your logic is sound, but I am more right. Here it is. When you talk about MVP, most people look at eye-popping offensive numbers, so it's a two-horse race. It's between Westbrook and Harden. In reality, that's who's going to get it, one or the other, because of the numbers and because most people don't pay attention to defense. But let me tell you my definition of MVP. Okay. That's the guy I wouldn't trade for anybody. That's the guy who I think gives you the best chance to win a championship. And this year, as it is every single year, his name is LeBron James. And the second player would be Kawhi Leonard. Yes, I'm the same guy who said leave him off the All-Star team because it's all about pizzazz and putting on a show, and that's not Kawhi Leonard. But what can Kawhi Leonard do? Can handle the ball, can bring it up the floor, can shoot at an elite level out to 25. He can do all these things, finish at the rim, whatever you want him to do, pass the ball, whatever you want him to do offensively. And then guard the other team's best perimeter offensive player every single night. Not only at an elite level, at the best level in the NBA, and that counts for a lot. Furthermore, this league has changed a lot, let's face it. The spread pick and roll, the rules changes, all those things over time, D'Antoni's influence, and then Popovich taking it to the next level, the Warriors. But really look at who wins championships. As much as the league has changed, and yes, the primary ball handler who can get penetration and find the open man is going to have sick numbers. Westbrook, Harden, and Steph Curry, right? But who actually wins championships? Same as it's always been. It's wings and bigs. They're who wins championships. Jordan and Pippen, Shaq and Kobe, or Duncan and whomever, right? Then it was, you can keep going forward. LeBron and Wade. Stop me when you get to a classic point guard who's the best player on the team. Not there. Kawhi Leonard with the Spurs. One championship for the Warriors, a loaded team, and it took the injuries to the second and third best players on LeBron's team for them to squeak by them in a tough 6-game series, right? It's still the dominant wing or big, and there aren't a lot of those guys out there right now, who actually wins the championships. The point guards are putting up the numbers. The wings are winning championships. LeBron's the best wing player in the league. KD is up there, but he's hurt right now. Kawhi Leonard is next. He's number 2 in the MVP race, in the real MVP race, in my opinion.
Well, first of all, once again, unnecessarily so, you make things far more complicated than they were. But what else is new, Mr. Ivy Leaguer? Here's the reality of the situation, Max Kellerman. You, of all people, don't get to make that argument. I don't want to hear a damn word from you on this subject. You know why?
Why?
Because Molly is the witness here, the moderator of the show, the lovely Mollywood. For weeks,
Yes.
we have been discussing league MVP.
Yeah.
All right? Was it not this man who repeatedly said LeBron?
Yeah.
I said...
Over and over.
Don't say LeBron.
Let me finish.
Okay.
I am not finished with my point. Russell Westbrook and James Harden was a debate.
Yeah, that was yours.
He constantly brought up LeBron. Tell me one time, Molly, he mentioned Kawhi. One time.
Oh, because
No. I asked you a question. We were talking about Harden and Westbrook. At one time, name one time you mentioned Kawhi Leonard.
Pick for MVP.
Hold on, wait a minute. Wait a minute. We talked about
He
the
means
league.
in terms of mentioning him, like even in the conversation.
I'm saying in the conversation,
Kawhi
was a distant. Oh, right, you're mentioning it now because last night we showed it. Because last night, that's what I'm trying to say. That's what I'm trying to say. That's exactly what.
Guilty as charged.
There we go.
Right,
so my point is this. Yeah. So last night, the brother shows up and he's big time. By the way, he's had numerous 30-point games this year.
Yep.
He's had numerous 23 of them. Yep. He's had double-doubles all over the place. He's a rated 2-time defensive player of the year. Yep. The dude has been around. But Max Kellerman ignored him for the first 60 games of the year. And because he shows up at home last night against the Houston Rockets, and he shows up particularly at the end of the game, now we want to sit up there and all of a sudden an epiphany hit you, and now he's number 2?
In my defense, I may be slow, but I'm not stupid. I mean, like, it's tough to come off.
Well, I appreciate that. I appreciate that acknowledgement.
You come off a nationally televised, or you come off a televised game where he's playing against one of the front runners for MVP. And look at the end of that game, because Greg Popovich is 100% right. Lots of guys shoot the 3 very well nowadays, including Kawhi Leonard, who's ruthlessly efficient offensively.
Right.
How many guys do what he does on the defense?
Not many.
He blocked the shot, but then it was his second effort after the LaMarcus Aldridge block. He came down with a rebound.
But the conversation is not a discussion about his talent, his skill set, and what it warrants. It's talking about this season.
Right.
And what I'm saying to you is, when you look at this season, think about this for a second. Take Kawhi off.
Okay.
Add Durant, Westbrook, Harden. I'm saying, just take him off their team. I'm saying to you, we have no doubt that Greg Popovich will find a way. He would find a way for the Spurs to be exactly who they are right now. I'm saying to you, we can't say that about everybody else, but we can say that about Greg Popovich.
That's sleeping on Kawhi. Kawhi definitely benefits from the tutelage under Greg Popovich and playing in that system, no doubt, just as Brady does with Belichick. At a certain point, though, those advantages compound to the player and accrue to their greatness. They redound.
But I'm not denying that. I'm not denying that. But I'm saying to you, too is that when we talk about you being that dude, meaning that MVP, we have to take into account all the ancillary factors.
Okay.
And the fact
Let me
is
ask you this.
you can't ignore, Max, am I correct? Didn't you do a final take on Popovich a few weeks ago?
Sure.
Oh, so now I forgot about that. So you did a final take.
It makes Kawhi better.
On the greatness of Greg Popovich.
Right.
But we ignore that when it comes into consideration about it?
See, look, it's the same thing with James Harden. Do I think James Harden's benefiting from D'Antoni's system? 100%. But does that mean that James Harden doesn't deserve credit for actually running the system?
You can't compare the two.
Why not?
I'm going to tell you why. Because we saw, even though I respect, D'Antoni's my coach of the year.
Yep.
But even though that's the reality, we saw D'Antoni in LA and in New York.
He didn't have a willing point. He needs a willing point guard.
That's not what I'm saying. That's not where I'm going.
Yeah, Jeremy Lin is a superstar for a minute.
That's not where I'm going. What I'm saying to you is we saw D'Antoni. Yes, his system is nice, but James Harden highlights what he needs, not what James Harden needed. James Harden was a superstar before. Hold on. Was James Harden a superstar
is Harden
before?
having the best season of his career?
Yes.
Okay.
But wait a minute. That's because Lou Williams is there. Eric Gordon
Steve
is
Nash
balling. Trevor Reese is Gordon.
Steve Nash was a bad little dude before he ever linked up with D'Antoni. He was bad in Dallas. He was a bad little dude. When he got with D'Antoni, he took it to another level. Same thing with Harden.
But again, I am not saying that D'Antoni's system isn't working, is not doing a good job.
Okay.
I'm saying it's not comparable to Pop. It's not comparable to Pop.
Kawhi never played for anyone else.
Because Greg Popovich continues to adjust to the talent that he has.
But Kawhi can't be blamed for that. He's only played for one coach.
He's not being blamed.
He only played for one coach.
He's a reigning two-time defensive player of the year.
Evaluate how good he is.
He's a reigning two-time defensive player of the year.
And
who's a league-leading MVP. Who's one of the league leaders for league MVP.
Oh, glad you agree.
That's not disrespecting. I said he's 4.
No, I'm saying he's 2. And by the way, just to fill in the idea.
No. You're saying he's 2.
Yeah.
Now, not for the last 2 months. Oh, no, we never heard it from your mouth.
Here's about it now. One last thing about that wings and big player, because usually I'll take the best wing in the league on my team. You could have whoever else you want, because that's the guy who wins championships. Even when Golden State won the chip. Who won the MVP of the finals on Golden State? Was it their point guard? No, it was Iguodala. It was their best, most effective wing. And playing defense on the other most effective wing, LeBron James. And when the Spurs won recently, who won the MVP? Kawhi Leonard. The best wing in reality when you talk about value, winning championships. It's LeBron, Kawhi. They give you the best chance.
Okay.
Fired up out of the gate. I love it.
But go ahead.
All right, you brought up final takes. You don't want to miss Stephen A's today because he's going to address Kawhi's comparison to Michael Jordan. But before that, we want to hear from you guys. Is it fair to compare Kawhi to his airness? Go on Twitter now and vote. Those results coming up.
We're bringing that up on Final Take, not because of me, but because Alvin Gentry, coach for the New Orleans Pelicans, compared Kawhi to Michael Jordan.
So it's stemming from that. Gentlemen, let's keep this conversation going. I'm having fun. So this has been the year of the stars in the NBA, clearly. So Russell Westbrook could potentially average a triple-double. Isaiah Thomas is pacing toward one of the highest scoring averages in Celtics history. Kawhi Leonard, we mentioned he had 23 30-point games this season, Stephen A. He only had 4 prior to this year in his career. Steph Curry leading the league in threes. James Harden leading the league in assists. KD is posting career highs in field goal percentage, rebounding, and blocks. And LeBron, he's just LeBron. So of those 7 guys, Stephen A., who are you leaving off of your all-NBA team?
First order of business. That top 10 list that they had there, Basketball Reference, I love Jimmy Butler and Kyle Lowry, but take them off the list. They have no business. They have no business on that list for league MVP honors.
So we're going Westbrook, Isaiah, Kawhi, Steph, KD, Harden, and LeBron. Of those,
believe it
who
or
are you
not,
leaving off?
Of the 5, of the 7 rather, who I'm leaving off that list, first team All-NBA, Isaiah Thomas and Steph Curry this year. Those 2 come off the list. I look at LeBron, it's LeBron. I look at the year Russell Westbrook and James Harden, that's absolutely given. Those are my 3 top candidates for league MVP. And, of course, there's Kawhi Leonard. I didn't even think about somebody like Anthony Davis, but again, we're talking all NBA in terms of you and what you've done this year as opposed to, just the skill set or whatever the case may be. We're not taking into consideration how your team is doing. Because if you're taking into consideration how the team is doing, then you get Anthony Davis off the list. I'm not going to do that to him. The dude's 6'11". He's all world. But here's my thing. Steph Curry has been streaky this year. Steph Curry has not been the same that he was in this place. Now, in fairness to him, It's an adjustment.
Yep.
Kevin Durant comes on the team. There's shots being taken away from him, et cetera, et cetera. Kevin Durant is the most efficient superstar outside of LeBron James. As far as I'm saying, he's more efficient than LeBron as a shooter. Kevin Durant was averaging nearly 26 a game on better than 53% shooting before he went down. I have to put KD on that list. So it's LeBron, it's KD. It's Russ, it's James Harden, it's Kawhi Leonard. Steph Curry is still a superstar to me.
Yep.
I have no doubts about him, but compared to the top 5, I believe now you can make the argument that he's been more efficient than Russell Westbrook, but he's been supported by obviously a significantly better cast, and he hasn't had to carry the load that Russell Westbrook has had to carry. I got KD in my top 5. That's the only Golden State Warrior I have in my top 5. Steph Curry is at number 6. Isaiah Thomas, the superstar he is.
Why'd you leave him off? I get Curry.
Because number 1, he's a defensive liability. Number 2, he's in the Eastern Conference. That says something to me as well. And points alone don't get you on that list. It's all purpose. And then you got to consider the fact Russell Westbrook's averaging more points. James Harden is averaging more rebounds and assists. You look at LeBron and KD and Kawhi, he certainly doesn't go ahead of them.
You can't choose who you root for. It just happens. Sometimes it's like weird. You cheer for something. If it's not the home team, just 2 other teams, and you're like, I didn't know I was rooting for that team or that guy. And even though he's a Celtic, I root for Isaiah Thomas probably harder than any other. 5'9", doing what he's doing. It's insane.
It's hard not to root for him. Yeah.
He's off my list for this team, for the All-NBA team. He's not. He doesn't make my list. Stephen A. pointed it out. It's the defense, and that counts. Steph Curry, I also agree. Touches taken away by the presence of KD. Now he's getting all those touches back. He's still adjusting. He's been, especially recently, he got cold, and when you're splitting hairs, that counts against you. KD is also hurt right now. Let me say this. I do factor in, when you discuss All-NBA, how the team does, because it's a group dynamic. And it's difficult. It's the reason counting numbers and even efficiency numbers sometimes are difficult in the NBA. 1 ball, 5 guys on the court at one time. Then you also got the bench and you got some, different rotations and such. So that really does affect the way guys play, at least the way it appears that they play through the numbers in the NBA, in basketball generally. I do factor in how the team does. And even factoring that in, I got Anthony Davis as my big on the All-NBA team. Anthony Davis is so good, it's ridiculous. Does he still have room to improve? Yes. But I remember when the Spurs were playing for home court, they wanted to win that last game. Popovich played everyone a couple years ago, and the Pelicans got into the playoffs because Anthony Davis was on their team and they didn't really have anything else. This guy is, as you would say, Stephen A., next level, and I'm not sure that KD is better than Anthony Davis. I'm not sure. My All-NBA is Westbrook, this year Harden, Kawhi, LeBron, AD.
I'm sorry, Max Kellerman. I don't mean to call you out on national television. Did you just say Anthony Davis?
I did.
Do you mean the Anthony Davis that you swore wasn't the alpha male on the Pelicans because it was DeMarcus Cousins?
I didn't say alpha male.
What did you say?
I said I would run the offense through DeMarcus Cousins.
You would run the offense.
Yes, because it works better that way.
Through an individual in DeMarcus Cousins instead of a guy by
Batman
Anthony
Robin.
Davis.
I think that was the
Batman Robin.
Yeah.
The Batman
I said Robin times 10.
So you said no. You call Anthony Davis
Nightwing.
Robin. That's what you said.
Yeah.
No. So let me get this straight.
Right.
Robin, not Batman.
Right.
You got a good memory today.
Right.
Robin, not Batman.
Yes.
I'm saying it a third time. Robin, not Batman,
ask you something.
is your guy. I just want to make sure.
I
don't have a problem with it.
If you have a guy,
I don't have a problem with it. I'm just highlighting your inconsistency.
It's completely consistent. Only on the surface does it appear inconsistent. Take a deeper dive.
Only on the surface.
If you have a guy who can get down low,
Plunge.
he can score and pass the ball, and he's going to draw the defensive attention so Anthony Davis can face up and do all kinds of things he wants to do. And Anthony Davis is the real defender on the other side. It's not to say Anthony Davis isn't the best player. But listen, some people argue they'd rather have Kobe than Shaq back in the day. But who would you run the offense through? And this is even more kind of the other way, where Anthony Davis, even if you don't run the offense through him, he's clearly the best player on the team.
Well, really, in Shaq's case, you had to because of a combination of the Goliath he was, and if you didn't run the offense through him, what purpose would he serve? With DeMarcus Cousins, who can step away from the basket, you don't necessarily have to do that.
So you want DeMarcus Cousins playing on the perimeter?
I'm saying, at times he has.
Okay, that's fine, but how do you basically want to run your offense?
Shaq was one place,
Right.
in the paint.
Right.
Okay?
But
and
you
by the
agree
way,
with me
he
about the
couldn't
way
hit
they
free
should run their
throws.
offense,
You
right?
understand? No. Anthony Davis should be the man.
Oh, okay.
All right.
Yeah.
So you guys
So
agree.
much for you to
Similar
learn.
teams
It's so much for him to learn.
outside of
It
Anthony
really is.
Davis
Okay.
and KD. Well, school's always in session, Stephen.
Always.
All right.
Handoff Adrian. Stutter steps to the left, runs for the first down to the 5. And he struts into the end zone. Touchdown, Vikings!
Quick throw to the near right side in the end zone and a leaping catch by Brandon Marshall for a Jets touchdown over Malcolm Butler.
Let's be honest. If you're on the hunt for a ring, what better place to go than good old Foxborough? With free agency just 2 days away, two of the bigger names available, Adrian Peterson and Brandon Marshall, have their eyes set on New England. Now, a source close to Peterson told the Boston Herald that he would certainly consider taking a team-friendly deal to sign with the Pats, and Marshall and New England reportedly have mutual interests following the playmaker's release by the division rival New York Jets. On that note, we welcome in a Patriot great, three-time Super Bowl champ Teddy Bruschi. Knows a little something about this team. It's been too long. How are we doing?
I'm doing good.
All right.
Thanks for having me.
Stephen A., let's start with you. Who would be a better fit in New England, Brandon Marshall or Adrian Peterson?
I believe it would be Brandon Marshall. Not to say that I think that Adrian Peterson has nothing left. He's a freak of nature. I know he's a workout warrior, working out hard in Houston at his own gym, doing some good things. I expect him to come back and definitely average better than the 1.9 yards per carry he had averaged last season. Fair enough. But when you think about the New England Patriots, and when it gets down to it, what really defines greatness for the New England Patriots? It's Tom Brady. And whatever weapons you can give him, all the more better. Now, don't get me wrong. Having somebody out of the backfield certainly helps. It takes some pressure off of him. But him flinging that football and having prime targets to fling that football to definitely helps. And so many times we look at these big tight ends. It's a Rob Gronkowski and it's the Martellus Bennett. Martellus Bennett is the best tight end available in free agency right now. We don't know about the health of Gronk, but you have Edelman and you have Amendola and you got Michael Floyd and you got, these other guys, Chris Hogan and these boys who can't be ignored because he showed up and produced.
He did.
But imagine having somebody like Brandon Marshall. And then think about it from this perspective. Not just his talent, but his size. He's bigger than most wide receivers, a tad bit smaller than tight ends. So he could do some things for you as a slot receiver, I believe, if it came to that. But more importantly, I'm thinking about hunger. Because, you got all of these dudes and they're like well-oiled machines and they win. Brandon Marshall has never even played in a playoff game.
Yes.
To bring somebody like that in, absolutely, positively starving.
I knew that, but it sounds crazy.
Starving for glory. Could you imagine him with Tom Brady and how bad he'd want it? I think that's what it is.
Instead of Jay Cutler or Fitzpatrick or Geno Smith, I feel really good for Brandon Marshall, and it would make the team better, I think. But I believe the answer here, if I had to choose, and maybe they don't, but if I had to choose, and I get Adrian Peterson on a discount, I think I'd have to do it. Particularly if you're going to lose Blunt. You need at least a 2-down back, right?
We're assuming Brandon Marshall's going to be a discount too, though.
Okay, fine.
Okay.
No, obviously, right. Patriots always get discounts.
Okay.
No one wants to play for
all right.
them, right?
So it's not a money thing, it's all a price.
Right. But if you have to choose one or the other, Adrian Peterson is a 2-down back, and I don't think he'll ever be Adrian Peterson again, but I think he'll be better than a lot of guys. He had a little time off, basically, and we've seen he's a freak of nature in terms of the way his body heals. And talk about hungry. You are in the conversation for the greatest ever at your position, and you want to win a Super Bowl too. Now, Tom Brady elevates all his receivers, as does Belichick in the offensive game planning, no question about it. But they have fast guys, and they have big targets, and they have slot receivers, and they have all the kind of guys that can catch the football. What they're going to need to do, potentially, is replace Blunt, right? They got Deion Lewis or White or whoever's going to be doing the third down stuff, but they got to replace Blunt. Adrian Peterson, if anything, is overkill there. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, first, a couple things. I think, first, how much of a discount for either of them? How much of a sacrifice would they be both of them willing to make to come in there money-wise?
We're assuming the money's going to, it'll negate itself. We just talk about talent.
And if it does, honestly, I think the first thing is both of them need to realize they don't need either. And I think when you realize that, I think that's what the attitude change coming in. They don't need Adrian Peterson to be that bruising back. They can draft someone that is big and has ball security, number one of all. I mean, Brandon Marshall, they do have plenty, all the ones that you mentioned, so they don't need either. But I've been there when it's incredible when a player of the caliber of Marshall comes in or Peterson comes in. It's almost like they're liberated. They're liberated coming in because it's almost like they can exhale because they know I am no longer the man. Look around, all around here in this locker room, all of the, it'd be the same now, all of these past champions that have got it done on the big stage. I don't have to do more than I'm asked to do. I don't have to be vocal. I don't have to do this. I saw it with Moss. I saw it with Dylan. I saw it with Seau, to where you have conversations with them and say, man, this is great that I know I got you and all these other guys here that'll take this leadership role, and a head coach that will clean up the mess. That he won't let a problem get too big before it gets too big. So that's why these players want to come in here. Marshall, he would be in that slot, almost another tight end. He's as big as a tight end.
6'4", 230.
He could be there in that slot and run those routes for him. He could even suck it up and block if he wanted to too. Mm-hmm. But I'd have to go Adrian Peterson. And I'd go Adrian Peterson because he would last more, I think. There would be game plans, in my opinion, where Adrian Peterson wouldn't even be utilized. He'd get 5 to 10 carries a game. And so the injury factor wouldn't be in there. He'd be resting for those major games down the stretch when he would be needed with the Antoine Smith, Corey Dillon role, a Garrett Blount role, if they lose Blount. If Blount comes back, then definitely it's going to Marshall because he would be valued. But these are two huge aspects of their team that they need. The running game late in the year, and even when they see a game plan against the team that's like, we need to run the ball, and it's got to be Blount, it's got to be Peterson, or that other big slot receiver. Gronk plays in the slot a lot. Bennett does, whether you're in line or not. The big body that really takes up high percentage throws between the numbers. They both could be valuable there, but that attitude you're both talking about, my gosh, when these players come into a locker room like this and they just know all I have to do is play. Yeah. They become different. They become different players, which is what you see with a lot of players that don't have the big names, where they come in and they just fit in sync.
Well, this is a very difficult moment for me because I don't like to disagree with my man Teddy Bruschi, and I don't like my man Teddy Bruschi disagreeing with me. I mean, this is one of the people that helps teach me about football. It's one thing to be a reporter reporting on a game. It's another thing to be walking through these corridors and running into experts, and they just teaching you more and more and more. And this is one of the dudes that has done it for me. I'm still trying to learn something from you, Mr. Ivy League. I'm still trying. Here's the deal, though. Here's the deal about it, though. I get what you're saying, Teddy. If I need a running game. My thing with New England is what you need are as many targets as you can get for Tom Brady. Because with that brother stepping back in the pocket to fling that football, the more requisite weapons, the better. Now, obviously, with Adrian Peterson, some would sit up there and say, you got to load the box. You load the box, that's less dudes in the secondary. Tom Brady could pick you apart with play action and all of this stuff. I get that. The flip side to it, however, is this. If you have additional targets, like a Brandon Marshall, and you've got question marks at tight end. We're not having this discussion if we know Rob Gronkowski's coming back. We're not having this discussion if Martellus Bennett. It's the fact that both of them can end up being gone, and then I got to pick or choose between Adrian Peterson or Brandon Marshall. I'm thinking about protecting and elevating Tom Brady more so than I'm thinking about anything else.
If you're going to lose both your tight ends, as you said, a big target who can almost act as a tight end, yes, I agree. But more than likely, let's say you lose Bennett and you lose Blount. So you're left with Gronkowski, and without that 2-down back, I'm taking Peterson.
They got to have the needs fulfilled on a week-to-week basis. Even offensive coordinators, every team. When we have to run a power running game, we have to do that. How do we do that? If we don't have Blount, it's not there. Mm-hmm. If we have to throw the ball, how do we do that? Already, they have the players to throw the ball. Brandon Marshall would be an additional valuable piece, but right now with Blount gone, they don't have the power running game for the game plans where they watch the film and say, this team is weak versus the power running game, Teddy, the extra offensive.
Have you forgotten what we saw in that first half in the Super Bowl against Atlanta? We saw some receivers, the athleticism and the physicality of the Atlanta Falcons was very evident. Very evident. Let's not forget that.
I've also seen Brandon Marshall make some critical drops.
That's true. So I agree with that.
And I've seen Adrian Peterson fumble the ball also. So there's your grain of salt with each signing.
Here you go.
I think either would be welcomed. We'll see what happens. Teddy, thank you so much.
Sure.
Appreciate it.
It really doesn't bother me. I think
it has to bother you.
No. I feel like, again, I said it last year, and I think I took the higher road last year. I didn't say much, but I'm more upset, because everybody was more excited about the situation than I was. The Hall of Fame and what it represents, for me, I think it's fallen short of that. Last year, okay, you slapped me on the wrist. I didn't get in this year. Again, I should have been a lock.
After getting snubbed by the Hall of Fame for a second straight year, Terrell Owens has taken matters into his own hands. Owens may have to wait at least another year to officially make his way to Canton, but he's not waiting around on the gold jacket given to Hall of Famers. This according to the New York Daily News' Gary Myers, who heard it from a Hall of Fame player who saw Owens in Los Angeles carrying a shopping bag. In that bag, you ask, a custom-made gold jacket. T.O. telling the Hall of Famer that he had his career stats put on the back of that jacket. Mr. Smith, like, love, or hate this?
I hate it. I don't like it one bit. T.O.'s personality, his people disliking him should have no bearing whatsoever on the greatness he displayed on the field.
Of course.
The 15,934 career yards, the 153 career touchdowns, to multiple categories in which he finished anywhere from top 3 to top 5 in NFL history should speak for itself and cement him as a Hall of Famer. He should have been first ballot. He should have been second ballot. He should be inducted next year. It's highway robbery. And I've even gone as far as to say that if he doesn't get in, neither should Randy Moss. And we all know Randy Moss should be in the Hall of Fame. Having said all of that, here's what I don't like about this, and it's personal for me in this regard. I know T.O. T.O. is sensitive. T.O. can be a brat. T.O. is a very good guy. T.O. is not a bad person at all. You know, he's a bit emotional. He's touched in that regard. You watch some of his reality TV shows and the interviews from the past and the things that he went through. Your father living right across the street and never acknowledged you as his own son, for crying out loud and stuff like that. Could you imagine what a profound impact that can have on a kid and the level of insecurities that can ultimately lend itself towards you having throughout your life? I'm not telling his personal business. I'm echoing what he told to the world about his personal business, because I would never reveal that stuff if he didn't say so on national television. Having said all of that, knowing that that is your reality, okay, and knowing that the residue from those emotions, which led to you having the personality that you have, ultimately greatly assisted in you being ostracized, at least for the time being, from the Hall of Fame. Why do something that will remind everybody of that exact attitude? For what? Why do it? What purpose does that serve? Yeah, ultimately you're highlighting how you're getting screwed over, but we're all doing that. If everyone was silent, I could understand, Max. The problem is you've spoken up on his behalf. I've spoken up on his behalf. Wilborn and so many others, different networks. Anyone who knows anything about football has spoken up on behalf of T.O. Sports Nation had him on his show based on that highlight we just saw, where they're talking about, everyone knows. Why do that? Because in the end, all it does is remind folks of what a problem you were perceived as being. I don't think it's right. I don't think it's fair to him, but I don't think he helped himself.
I want folks to be reminded that he was a pain in the butt sometimes. Good. Remind yourself. Remind yourself, because I love this. And you can eat it and like it when you vote him into the Hall of Fame, where he will assuredly reside. I mean, T.O. will make it to the Hall of Fame one day, whether the haters like it or not. Think about, you said about put the stats on the back of his jacket. All-time touchdown receptions. He's third. Who's ahead of him? We all know the
Moss
names.
and Jerry Rice.
Jerry Rice won, Randy Moss 2. T.O.
And Randy Moss only by 3.
And by the way, that might be the all-time list of receivers in order.
Yeah.
Jerry Rice 1, Randy Moss 2, T.O. 3. How about in yards, total yards? Jerry Rice 1, he's the godfather. I mean, he's the other two. T.O. 2, Randy Moss 3. All time. You don't put him in the Hall of Fame on the first vote, fine. You want to make a stupid point, go make your stupid point. You don't want to put him in on the second vote? Okay. Maybe you don't put him on the third vote. Maybe this hurts his chances, Stephen A., but one day those haters are going to have to swallow it. They're going to have to do it. They're going to have to vote or they lose credibility. The Hall of Fame loses credibility if you don't put Terrell Owens in. As I've been saying, there are tough calls. There are borderline cases. Borderline TD made it in this year, and I'm very happy for him. Clearly a Hall of Fame talent. obviously on his way to a Hall of Fame career. It was tragically cut short by injury. Okay, he got in. I'm happy for him. I don't know that I would have voted because they're borderline cases. This is not a borderline case. So I love the fact that T.O. said, oh, you don't like that? Watch this. I'm going to put on the back of my jacket exactly the argument for me to be in black and white, and the haters don't have to like it, but they're going to have to vote me in eventually, and that's exactly what's going to happen. And by the way, when they vote him in, I hope it feels bad for them. I hope they have a really bad feeling when they do.
First of all, they've already lost credibility. They're not going to lose it. They've already lost it. He should have been in already. He should have been in already. That's number one. But number two, whereas I respect your point, what I would venture to say to you, Max Kellerman, is you're thinking about Terrell Owens, the football player. I'm thinking about T.O., the person that has to go on with the rest of his life, that is looking to do other things and things that transcend the sport of football, but ultimately also things that could allow one to be a part of the NFL. T.O. is actually very, very smart. He knows the game of football.
Yeah.
There's a lot that he could give to the game, to somebody's staff, et cetera, et cetera. You never, ever know what kind of future opportunities may be available to you that you're shutting the doors on because you're reminding someone of the kind of attitude you have. Again, I don't think it's fair, but I do think it's the upward battle that he is confronted by. And when you want to be oblivious to that, just because you have this insatiable need to express yourself, that's where I think it becomes a bit difficult to stomach. It's not right, but it's T.O.'s reality. It's T.O.'s reality. And you know, Donovan McNabb said it best. This is the Donovan McNabb that works for this network now. This is the Donovan McNabb that will be a nominee for the Hall of Fame because of his great years in Philadelphia. This is the Donovan McNabb that was the quarterback of the Philadelphia Eagles when he and T.O. went to the Super Bowl together as teammates, who did not like T.O. a lot of times. Donovan McNabb conceded T.O. needs to be in the Hall of Fame. He deserves it. But he also said that T.O., chill out. You don't need to bring this added extra attention to yourself.
You're right, and Donovan McNabb's right. By the way, McNabb and Parcells and those who would know best acknowledge difficulties with T.O. at times, and they're the ones who say he's still a Hall of Famer. How dare the voters who know much less about him and have been exposed to him less than override the... Okay, fine. And by the way, to look past those numbers is ridiculous. This is what bothers me the most about it. Even though you're probably right, it would be wiser for him not to. But boy, this feels good as someone who knows T.O. belongs in. They're taking a swing, the voters at T.O., in a way that he really can't swing back. I mean, you know how you swing back, you say, you know what, the hell with the Hall of Fame, I don't need it. But you can't turn down the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
The Hall of Fame is unturndownable. So you have to just sit there and eat it. And for once, a guy's like, or maybe not for once, we showed Chad Ochocinco, and he wasn't T.O., a guy is saying, you know what, I'm not just going to eat it, I'm swinging back. Check out the stats.
It's just a jacket, and I can get my own. Speaking of which, you know what I really want to know on a much lighter note? When's he going to bust out the jacket? When are we going to actually see him wear it? Interesting to see that debut. Gentlemen, folks are starting to feel the momentum swinging in the Cavs' direction after KD's injury and their latest acquisitions of Andrew Bogut and Darren Williams. But Cleveland has dropped 4 of their last 6 games, and Bogut fractured his tibia just 58 seconds into his Cavs debut. Here's LeBron and Kyrie on the huge hit.
I heard it break. As soon as the collision happened, I heard it break. And when I went over to him and he said it, I already knew. I heard it. I heard it crack.
It kind of took the wind out of our sails a little bit because I think he knew right away. So, we're just hoping that he gets better. Obviously, it's terrible, man.
Huge break, literally and figuratively, Stephen A. Do you still have the Cavs as your favorite?
Yes, I do. Hasn't changed my mind one bit. Sad to see that Andrew Bogut is gone. Rim protector would help Tristan Thompson out very, very well. I like Derek Williams as well, though. I mean, although I like Derek Williams, he's smaller, but I definitely think he's a frontline player that's going to help them in their front court, along with Tristan Thompson. We all know that LeBron James, despite his greatness and his penchant to be on the perimeter, is 6'8", 250, and can be down low if necessary. The key for me, though, is this. The fact that you acquired Darren Williams, who's a backup point guard, who could spell for both LeBron and Kawhi. I'm sorry, not Kawhi, but Kyrie. And this is something that LeBron had prioritized. Had you lost Darren Williams, I would have far more trepidation than you losing Andrew Bogut. But because it's Andrew Bogut, and that's not how you were necessarily going to beat the Golden State Warriors anyway, assuming they got to that point, I'm not that worried. Maybe I should be if San Antonio's the one that's going to come out of the West instead of Golden State, but I'm still stuck on Golden State and Cleveland giving us all the trilogy that we've been waiting for. And with that belief in mind, I'm just of the mindset that Cleveland, they got Darren Williams. And because they have Darren Williams, a bona fide backup point guard who could start on more teams if he wanted it bad enough, I believe that Cleveland is still the legitimate favorite, not to mention the fact that we don't know how healthy Kevin Durant is going to be once he returns from Golden State. I'm sticking with Cleveland.
Before I even answer this question, let me turn the tables on you from earlier in the show, sir. You hypocrite. All season long,
Right.
Molly, what have we been hearing from our resident NBA guru? All season long.
You can just call me Stephen A. Smith. That'll be good.
The regular season, well, I thought that was synonymous.
Oh, the foregone conclusion.
The regular season foregone
Yeah,
conclusion.
it's-
Now all of a sudden, look who's
it's-
worried about
it's
the Warriors
ruined
making it
for
to the
him.
finals.
No one's gonna
Apparently,
care.
it's not a foregone conclusion.
Not worried about it. When Kevin Durant went down, I said that San Antonio could possibly knock them off. Kevin Durant
no
went
longer
down.
a foregone conclusion.
Well, it happens. Catastrophic injury. Are we assuming that Durant is back for the playoffs or not?
Well, we're assuming this back, but you and I both question whether or not he'd be 100%.
Okay, well, it's two different conversations. If Kevin Durant is severely compromised, the Cavs are the favorite. Let's assume for a second, though, that he comes back as some form of Kevin Durant, 80% or more of Kevin Durant.
Sure.
When you add a piece like Kevin Durant to a team, you change the chemistry of the team. Even a great player does that, and frequently it takes a year before it gels, and then the following year, the big three in Miami, for example, although Stephen A., as you point out, that was really the formation of a new team. It formed like Voltron, but now it's a new thing. Kevin Durant was joining a well-oiled machine, and you would think a full season is enough time to get him integrated, and maybe now this is a rest for him, and the other players are figuring out how to play together again and all that.
Yeah, but it's adjusting again.
Again and again.
Yeah.
Here's the bigger picture for me. The devil's usually in the details, and in this case, losing Bogut really hurt the Warriors. Their interior defense and the way they play, and the fact that now they're vulnerable to a team that can post. And you mentioned the various players on the Cavs, even though they're not centers, who can post. Well, first of all, I would say Bogut's absence on the Warriors can be exploited, but not by Bogut's presence on the Cavs. I never thought that he was the best player to exploit that anyway. So his going down doesn't change it for me, but I never gave the Cavs the nod over the Warriors. Because even if you look at the details, without Bogut, without Barnes, whatever else it is, they're somehow not the same, they don't have the same magic as last year, I step back and look at the big picture. If I told you we're choosing up teams and you have Steph and Clay and Draymond and still you got Iguodala, who do you want, Bogut and Barnes, or do you want KD? If you have a whole season to integrate KD, who's going to be better? The answer is the team with KD. I know it has certain structural, strategic problems. I get it. That's going to be outweighed by adding a player as great as KD. Now look at what happened last year, because these teams are more or less the same. Darren Williams gives them a boost. He does, no question, over Dellavedova. But how much of a boost? Let's put it this way. Last year, the Cavs, behind an impossible finals by LeBron, had to pull off the greatest miracle maybe in the history of the NBA to scrape by the skin of their teeth, luckily on the road in Game 7. Now you're going to tell me you're going to add KD to that other team? I'm going to step back and say, forget about the details. Let's look at the big picture. Warriors should be favored if KD is playing.
Well, again, you can say they should be favored. My mentality is this. I'm looking at how they lost. Even though KD elevates them because he's so efficient and he's such a superstar extraordinaire, the reality is clear. Cleveland is the more physical team. Golden State can get to the hole, but they're basically a perimeter shooting team. They defend well on the perimeter. If you think you're going to beat them shooting jump shots, it's not going to happen because they have incredible length and they can defend the perimeter. In the post, it's a little bit different because the rough rider that they have is Draymond Green. Zsa Zsa Jr., he's not Andrew Bogut as a rough rider. JaVale McGee, I'm not going to be Shaq, but let's just say it again. It's JaVale McGee. So in the end, what we come down to is this. You got the big four, along with the Livingstons of the world, the Iguodala's of the world. These are individuals that can come off the bench, do some things for you along with the starters, but it's getting to the hole off dribble penetration or it's shooting perimeter shots. If you're Cleveland, getting physical neutralizes all of that to some degree because it lowers the pace. And obviously fouls are going to get called. It disrupts tempo. And I think that Darren Williams doesn't take away from any of that, which means Cleveland still gets to be who we saw them be in those last 3 games of the NBA Finals. And I think that helps.
Darren Williams does help, but it may be too little too late because the damage may have already been done. All those trips to the finals, Olympics, all the USA team, and LeBron James averaging the number of minutes he's averaged so far this season, higher than in recent seasons.
Now, you just said something very blasphemous.
Go ahead.
You're concerned about the conditioning of LeBron James.
About anybody who's played as many minutes as he
has.
And by the time you get to game 7, if it goes that far, of the finals.
All I know is it's not a foregone conclusion
Let me
anymore.
tell y'all something.
I like the word.
Let me tell you something very important about LeBron James.
Okay.
You ever see the LA Fitness and all of these other gyms and stuff like that?
Yeah.
I've always been told that's like LeBron's house. That's the kind of gym he has.
Yeah.
The taking care of his body. This dude will do nothing to compromise his
health.
health.
But he was taking care of his minutes before this year.
On that note, let's stay on the subject of the heartbeat of the Cleveland Cavaliers. So obviously it's his 14th season, and LeBron joined the Road Trippin' podcast on his Uninterrupted website and talked about how he's addicted to that process you're talking about of trying to become the greatest of all time.
I just told my wife the other day that I apologized to her. She was like, "What are you apologizing for?" I said, because the journey that I'm on to want to be the greatest to ever play this game, or the point where no one ever forgets what I accomplished, I've at times lost the fact of how important you are to this whole thing. Along this journey, while I'm playing this game, there will be times where I'll lose the fact of how important you and my 3 kids are, my babies are, because of how indebted I am on trying to be cemented in something that will last forever.
Stephen A., what do you make of those comments?
Not only do I think they're completely honest, very profound, and I'm grateful to hear what LeBron said, not just because of his honesty about it, but it echoes things that I've heard from Hall of Famers. And by the way, you don't have to be a professional athlete to make sacrifices. No. I live it every day.
Of course.
I remember Hall of Famers like primetime Deion Sanders, Isaiah Thomas, and others. During this Hall of Fame speeches, they literally thanked their family members, loved ones, while apologizing because the sacrifices that they made, the selfishness that they had to display, was what they felt they needed to do in their pursuit of greatness. It's that kind of commitment, that selfishness, that stuff that insulates you, that takes you there. To a lesser degree, Max, me, getting a little bit personal, my family gets on me all the time because they'll see me, but I'm in and out, and I'm constantly a road warrior, and I'm gone. I'm in and out all the time, and I don't blink. Why? Because I got left back, and I was like, this ain't happening to me no more. And everything that I do, I'm in constant pursuit of greatness.
What do you mean you got left back?
I got left back in the 3rd grade, got promoted at the end of the summer to my right grade, went to the 4th grade, and then got left back again for the whole full damn year. Had dyslexia and all of that stuff. This is a story that a lot of people know about me because I don't hide it. My point is that ever since that day, I've made sure wherever I graduate from, it's with honors. And whatever I do, I'm in pursuit of greatness. And no matter what it is that I'm doing with my personal life, I am an individual that if I'm not successful at what I choose to do, no one around me is happy because I'm not happy because I'm failing at this. That's how I look at life. Everything is it's not even about the achievement. It's about your pursuit of it. I could sit up there and fail at something and know that I gave my all. But if
that's how you survive losing all these arguments every day.
I'm glad you think so. But for me, if at any time I think I've left a stone unturned, then there's something inside of me that's sick. And there's nothing that can lift me up from it because you're in pursuit of it. And I never understood it until I was watching Prime Time during his Hall of Fame speech and Isaiah during his Hall of Fame speech. And then again, I'm reminded of it yesterday, listening to LeBron. It's that sacrifice. People who love you get it, but you still owe them an apology because nothing else moves you to that point.
And tellingly, maybe, the greatest of all time, really in any sport, Michael Jordan, basically was still so competitive that he used his Hall of Fame speech to berate everyone, all his coaches and his family and everybody. He's still killing everybody.
Yeah.
There's a movie called Searching for Bobby Fischer about a chess prodigy, Joshua Waitzkin.
I saw it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good movie.
It was.
And he was really talented, and his chess teacher, who watched him play one day at a young age, thought he could be the next Bobby Fischer, who at the time, he's been surpassed, but at the time was considered the greatest chess genius ever. And the movie's really about a decision that the parents had to make. Do they want him to lead, the kid to lead, a normal, healthy, well-adjusted life, or do they want him to pursue becoming the greatest chess champion who ever lived? Because you can't do both. I mean, maybe someone can. Maybe kind of like Magic Johnson came closest, right? To being a guy everyone likes and being well-adjusted and still being arguably the greatest ever. But that's a real mean feat. Usually, it doesn't work that way. You have to be willing to sacrifice the people around you and leading a normal life if you're pursuing greatness on that level, not just Hall of Fame,
right?
But you're chasing the ghost of Michael Jordan, LeBron James is. If you're trying to become the greatest ever, then your life will not be normal and the people around you will suffer most likely.
It's whatever you define it. Like, for example, I'm not comparing myself to LeBron James, Isaiah, Michael Jordan, or anybody else.
But you could connect to it.
But I'm just saying you can connect to it based on your own individual pursuit. And the reason why it moved me so much and is so profound, because when I look at my life and I think about people around it, whether it's people that I work with, people that I work for, or even family and loved ones or whatever, it's their level of understanding that help get you through because they know what you're made of. And then to reciprocate, you might have somebody in your life that's pursuing greatness. You're not sitting there and telling them you want them to make you the priority at the expense of what they want, but you do have to find a way to squeeze it in there just to remind them they're important too. It's just that in this moment, it's what I have to go through. And I just can't say enough to know the Maverick Carters, to Rich Pauls, to Randy Mims, to, meet LeBron James' wife is phenomenal. She's a lovely
clearly
woman.
She's a special woman.
She's a lovely, special woman. But when you watch these folks around him, it's a beautiful feeling to see. They get it. They get it.
They got to her.
They get it.
Yeah, you don't get there by yourself.
Let me tell you this. If they didn't get it, you ready for this statement? And I'll end it with this. If they didn't get it, Max, he wouldn't be LeBron because they would be a distraction.
Right.
Yep.
They would distract him. And as a result, it would take away from something he's feeling.
This is not someone who's simply career-oriented or goal-oriented.
Right.
This is someone who is trying to become the greatest ever in maybe the most competitive thing on planet Earth. Basically, it's barely hyperbole to say almost everyone on planet Earth who can play in the NBA is playing in the NBA. Yeah. And he's trying to become the greatest ever at that. That's something different.
And it sounds like he has a great team around him off the court as well that helps him achieve that. Meanwhile, in an interview with the Los Angeles Times, Pacers president of basketball operations Larry Bird talked about his rival, Magic Johnson, and the challenges he faces now that he's the Lakers president of basketball operations. Larry's saying this, he's got a lot to learn, but he took the challenge, and I'm sure he's ready for it. There's just so much to learn about it. You can put a team together, what you think's going to be a pretty solid team on paper, and then when they get out there, they don't mesh well. That's the growing pains. That's the frustration about it. Now, keep in mind, Magic beat Bird in the 1979 national title game. Magic also beat Bird in 2 of the 3 finals when they faced each other. Max, will Magic have more success as president as well?
I think he will. And look, in the pros, it's easy to forget now. Because Magic won 5 titles, Bird 3. Magic played longer at a higher level because of Bird's back injury. But for the first 5 or 6 years, no one was running around saying Magic was as good as Bird. And Magic won the finals MVP as a rookie. But he didn't shoot as well. He didn't score as well. I mean, Bird was considered the best player in basketball. And then over time, Magic's career surpassed his by a little bit. Usually they go together. And here they're going to be rival executives. And Stephen A. Smith, what Dan Le Batard said about Magic Johnson, I think applies. I don't think he's dissing Magic when he says, essentially, he's charming. And that helps. He's media savvy and friendly. And that helps. Magic Johnson's also the president of basketball operations for the most storied, including the Celtics, at least in modern NBA history, by far, franchise, and the #1 glamour franchise in basketball in the known universe. And by the way, it's not close. The vast majority of the Celtics championships took place, before the current era, before the absorption of the ABA teams, the three-point shot, etc. And Bird just doesn't have the same kind of personality as Magic. So Bird makes these moves, and he's done a very good job. Magic will have more resources. He'll have the glamour of LA. He'll have the charm of his own personality. And I think ultimately that will lead to even more success than Bird's had. And Bird's had quite a bit considering the market in which he's dealing. Lastly, Larry Bird here, he's a straight talker, but he's also a smack talker. And I'm reminded of, Ezra Edelman's documentary that just won the O.J. Simpson doc that won the Academy Award for ESPN. He had a doc on HBO, The Courtship of Rivals, Bird and Magic. And do you remember what Bird said the best part of winning a championship was? The best part of beating the Lakers was that he knew his friend was suffering in the other locker room because he knew what that felt like to lose. So when you read Bird say this stuff, yeah, he's shooting Magic straight, but he's also trying to put doubt in his mind because they're already competing against him.
They're already competing. I think Magic has a better shot at being successful because of the market that he's in. But let's also recognize the fact that Bird has had ample opportunity to turn the Indiana Pacers around, and that hasn't necessarily happened. Now, you do have the 56-26 season in 2013-2014 when Frank Vogel was coaching the team. They went to the conference finals. They were very successful, but they didn't have LeBron and D. Wade and Chris Bosh in Miami. That was the roadblock, the impediment to their success. Outside of that, they haven't really had that great of a season since Rick Carlisle left. When I believe, what were they, 61-21 in 2003, 2004. So they really haven't had that. Bird has had ample opportunity. Pretty difficult getting dudes to come to Indianapolis to play some basketball. I'm talking about the star caliber dudes. Magic Johnson is Showtime. Like he did, in that documentary, he's going through the front door. Bird will go out through the back. Magic's going through the front door. He wants that crowd. He wants to shine. He wants all of those things. Those things lend itself towards stars wanting to be a part of you because it's La-La, it's LA, it's sunshine, it's the palm trees. It's someplace I want to be quite honest with you. So when you look at it from that perspective, I think that some of the things on the outside, some of the, just some of the ancillary things, I think it works to Magic Johnson's advantage and will give him an advantage over Bird because you have Paul George right now who's better than any player on Indiana and better than any player on the Lakers.
Who might wind up on the Lakers and leave Indiana.
What are they talking about it? He might leave Indiana to go to a market like LA. That's what Larry Bird has to fight against. Magic Johnson does not. I think that gives Magic Johnson the edge.
And just like the matchup in their careers, to me what's interesting, Bird got out of the gate faster than Magic, the championship for Magic notwithstanding. But Bird was almost universally considered the best player in basketball. And actually his rival initially in terms of the marketing was Dr. J, not Magic. Eventually people caught on that it was Magic, Converse and all those advertisers. Even the video game was Dr. J versus Larry Bird. I remember this. Bird was the guy. But over the long run, it was Magic. And considering the advantage that Bird has, remember, neither one is a GM. They're the heads of basketball operations, presidents. Bird is already savvy in that arena. Magic, it's going to take time. No GMs or presidents are going to give him a break because he's Magic Johnson. They're going to prey upon him because he's inexperienced. So in the short run, I like Bird just like in their careers. Over the long haul, Magic's personality and marketplace, as you mentioned, Stephen A., that in which he's operating, I think will give him the advantage. But we're talking about years, over years.
And you like that the rivalry continues.
Best.
The Bucs offered backup quarterback Mike Glennon a contract that would make him the highest paid backup quarterback in the NFL, first reported by Bleacher Report, and a source confirmed to our Adam Kaplan. Glennon turned down the offer because he wants to be a starting quarterback and plans to test the free agency market. On that note, we bring in a ray of sunshine. Merrill Hodge, how are we doing?
It's gray outside. It's raining too, man. So,
yeah, you're bringing the sunshine to us, though. Max, I want to start with you. Is this a good move or a bad move by the Bucs to make Glennon the highest paid backup?
You know, I love this idea, and you know who I think should be happiest about it is Jameis Winston, because Glenn ain't going to take his job. He's just a competent, reliable player and probably the best backup. He's the best quarterback. The reason there's so much heat on him right now, I think he's the best non-branded starter quarterback available, I think. You know, and he doesn't have the same kind of pizzazz that Jimmy Garoppolo has right now. But we've seen him. He's a competent, reliable player at the backup quarterback position. And a funny thing happens. Teams think that they're serious about winning, and that's where they can save some money, backup quarterback. Well, if you don't have one, what happens? What happened to Oakland? What happened to Pittsburgh when Roethlisberger went down?
Yeah, it can cost you your season.
Now compare that to what happened in New England. Now, they're not paying Garoppolo yet, but they had a guy who could play there. It makes all the difference. If you're serious about winning, you need a backup quarterback. It reminds me of first base in Major League Baseball. It's the easiest defensive position to play, so teams always thought, stick your worst defender there, don't worry, get the bat in the lineup. And what they learned over time is, just because it's the easiest to play doesn't mean you don't need defense there. Now things are changing. Just because your starter probably won't get hurt doesn't mean you don't need a good insurance plan. You do.
So what are we saying here?
I love what Tampa's doing here.
He's 5-13 as a starter. He's never completed better than 59% of his passes. Until last year, where he threw 11 passes and completed 10 of them. We respect that in 2 games, none of which he started. I look at it from the standpoint that you want to back up, sure, but do you want to pay him an exorbitant amount of dollars? How much faith is that showing in Jameis Winston? I question things like that when something like that happens. It's not that we
That's
don't
where
need a
my
backup.
mind went to.
It's not that we don't need a backup. It's not that a backup is not important. But when you're willing to pay money to an unproven commodity, that reeks of some sort of nepotism in my mind where, I like the guy. He's a real good kid. I like him. I have affection for him. Let's keep him here. We like him. We know him. As opposed to how actually productive he is. I am not saying that Mike Leonard doesn't belong in the NFL. I'm not saying that he couldn't be productive for somebody. But if you know you got the man as your franchise player in Jameis Winston, for you to be willing to allocate those kind of funds for a backup tells me there's either a lack of confidence that you have in Jameis Winston, or there's some real coziness going on in Tampa, Florida.
I think they're hooking Winston up. He ain't going to take his job. He's an insurance policy.
I'm going to lean over towards Max.
Okay.
And here's why. Dirk Cutter is the head coach there, was the offensive coordinator. You mentioned, the numbers. They weren't very good. And I think that he did play for Dirk 1 year.
Yes.
In this.
Yes.
Didn't have the people around him Jameis Winston has. Didn't have the running game. I think that Dirk being there understands to what you're alluding to. If Jameis Winston were to get hurt, I got almost a similar clone. A guy that can still orchestrate and run my offense, do the things I need to do, and we don't take this 180 turn where Ben Roethlisberger gets hurt. Okay, Carr gets hurt. What do we do? Okay, we got to start. We got to dummy it down. We can only do A and B. We can't do A to Z. They can do A to Z if Jameis Winston were to get hurt. And I really do believe that is why they're trying to keep him.
Would they be tempted, Stephen A., to have a shorter leash with him there? That's my question. If you know you have Glennon, if Jameis struggles a little bit, are you more apt to?
I don't see that. But listen, if you're telling me, because Glennon is somewhat of a clone, that he enables Dirk Cutter to do exactly what they would be doing when Jameis Winston is in the game. If he were to go down, you don't really have to change anything up, then I'm going to lean on your football expertise to not fight that notion. All I'm saying is I'm counting the dollars, and I'm thinking about a backup. No. And I'm saying a backup with dollars is what gives me cause to pause.
Now, that's a different subject. Now, if you think about the money, and listen, I'm not a salary cap. That's not what I do. I don't know what salary cap are. But let's say they've worked it so we can keep him at this dollar, but we can continue to build our team. I completely get it.
Well, I guess
they're not paying Jameis yet.
Right.
But they're going to pay him.
Right. So you got a 2-year window there where we can move around based on how it's set up.
Whoa. What are you trying to imply? That somehow, some way, because they didn't pay Jameis yet, that if Jameis somehow is struggling, that Mike Glennon and somebody's going to be in there? I'm just making sure.
Look at the line.
I'm just making sure. You worried me there for a second.
It's the same way I feel about the Cowboys. Everyone wants Romo moved and everything. If I were the Cowboys, I'd try to talk Romo into backing up Dak, because If Dak gets hurt, it preserves Romo, who's injury prone. If Dak gets hurt, you have a quarterback. And everyone's like, well, now he's expendable. You don't want to spend that money. All I know is when they drafted Dak, they had a line item for quarterback. This is how much we're spending. That hasn't changed. Why deal Romo? It's an insurance policy. Same thing here. You're not paying Jameis yet. You got a little extra cash. Do you think quarterbacks are important?
I think he's taking into account money. You're not taking into account the human instinct. And what I mean by that is this. You're 36 years old if you're Tony Romo. You've never been to a conference championship game. Obviously, you've never been to a Super Bowl. Really, really obviously, you never won a Super Bowl. And at 36 with a 78-49 regular season record, who's everybody is saying could still do some things if he's healthy, you don't want to keep him there as a backup because you feel like you might owe him more than that. And if you keep him there, he's not going to be happy being a backup because he knows his other potential. That ain't Mike Glennon.
All I'm saying is backup quarterback, Merrill, is an incredibly important position in tackle football. And if you got to spend, you'd like not to spend money there, but if you have to for an insurance policy, spend the money.
According to Twitter, not that we're going to trust Twitter, this could all be a moot point because they're saying that Glennon's talking to Chicago Bears and that could potentially be what's happening.
I do think that they
well,
have
listen, that's
to be
what
careful.
he wants to. I mean, now if I understand Glennon's situation, he is a unrestricted free agent.
Yes.
Well, now, people have to appreciate this and understand this. A team can do all they could possibly do financially to make you want to stay here, and a player say no. I'm going to go. That's why I'm a free agent.
Well, if he wants to start and he has an opportunity to start.
And I wouldn't blame him. Actually, I'd be more concerned about him if he is willing to stay there and be a backup.
You're right.
I'd be more
And
concerned.
just cash a paycheck rather than have a chance to compete.
So you being comfortable and sitting behind a guy is what you really like?
Especially when you're a young player and you're sitting behind a young player.
So I like it. I'm good. That's actually good. It's a good tweeting right there. I like seeing someone who's going to go out there.
I must ask you what you think would be the ideal landing spot for him. I must confess to you, when I hear of any youngster going to Chicago, I am concerned. There's a disease there in Chicago that you can catch. It's called Jay Cutler disease. You don't want to be contaminated by anything that he has touched. I mean, it could take you down. I am concerned about that with a young quarterback. How do you feel about Glennon in Chicago as opposed to the New York Jets or somebody else?
I'm going to go right to who their head coach is, John Fox, who I know very well. And the one thing I do appreciate about Foxy, and he's done this over his career, he has brought quarterbacks that weren't considered, franchise guys, got them to the Super Bowl by going down, running the football, protecting them, getting things up. Not saying, hey, we got Glennon, that's how we're going to
But the two guys he got to the Super Bowl was Jake Delhomme and Peyton Manning.
Well, keep in mind, okay, Jake Delhomme, that's what I'm saying.
Okay.
You got Jake Delhomme, who we wouldn't consider a franchise guy, but they maximized Jake Delhomme. They had a great running game.
14 years ago.
Peyton Manning was on the decline in where he was going. Now, keep in mind, when they walked into that Super Bowl, I think people forget the Denver Broncos. They were depleted on it as a team. I mean, Von Miller wasn't playing. I mean, you could go on and on. Defensively, they were absolutely depleted. But Foxy understands you got to have that piece, and how good is that piece, and then where do I got to lean on to help get the most out of that piece?
Much more sense for Chicago than the Jets, right? Who look like they're rebuilding, or no?
I don't know what the Jets are doing. To be honest with you, I'm telling you, they're
that's a hot mess.
Yeah, they're confused. We do a whole hour on that.
One other thing I want to throw at you before we let you go, though. Now, the Bucs were 23rd in total ranked defense. So does that concern you at all? Like, where are we allocating our resources here? Because we really need to work on the defensive side of the ball if you have a franchise quarterback.
But that's what I'm saying. Like, okay, I'm not a salary cap guy, but listen.
But in terms of bringing players in, it helped the Giants.
To your point, if I go and sign up Glennon for $15 million and now I can't get my defense better or I can't pay people, that's a huge mistake. Because now I got all this money on a guy who's just sitting there versus guys who contribute. As a player, I would have a problem with that.
Yeah.
I'll be sitting in the locker room going, what? What are you doing here?
Yeah. We need help on the other side of the ball.
Yeah. That's why I was saying with the soccer. If you can handle it, but you can still make us better defensively, but what you put in there isn't hurting us, I'm all for it.
That'll be interesting to see how they handle that side of the ball, though.
You don't have to spend for your backup quarterback. Don't. But if you got to, do not sleep on how important that is. We talked about it earlier. Oakland and others really suffered because they didn't have a guy who was ready.
It takes a lot more than talent to be a backup. You have to want to be there. That matters.
Free agency officially opens up Thursday, so we'll see how it all plays out. Merrill, always good to see you.
Always good to see you guys.
So leading up to his championship fight this past weekend, Tyron Woodley said that he is the worst treated UFC champion because of his race. Now, after winning by majority decision over Wonder Boy on Saturday night, UFC president Dana White says he thought Thompson won the fight. Woodley fired back in an interview with TMZ. Check it out.
Dana White thought I won the first fight, but he didn't publicly come out and say he thought I won the first fight. So I thought it was a bit distasteful for the promoter to say he thought he won the fight. That's like me coming out as a fighter saying I didn't think he did a good job of promoting the fight, which I don't. I don't think they did a good job promoting me as champion. I'm gonna fall back. I'm gonna do my thing. But I'm gonna be a tough dude to deal with.
Let's just get one thing clear here. White is much more than a promoter. He's also a part owner and has other titles beyond that. But obviously he's also promoting the fight. So there's only one guy who calls the shots around here, and as soon as you learn that, you'll be better off. That's what Dana responded. Whose side are you on here, Woodley or Dana?
The answer is Dana White, but I need to preface that by saying I've been friends with Dana White now over 15 years probably, and I like him. You know, like so I need to say that. I'll preface it by saying that. Let me say something about Woodley. He's a good fighter. He's an excellent fighter. There's no such thing. The reason the UFC is successful is the best fighters in the world all fight each other all the time. You cannot be welterweight champion if you're not excellent, so he is excellent. But by the standards of UFC champions, he is not a dominant champion. In fact, there was controversy even over the scoring in the last round, a 10-8 round, where he scores a knockdown, he gets the extra point for the knockdown, and I have something to say about that. In boxing, you get an extra point for a knockdown because you can't follow up your advantage. So the idea is not just that you landed a good shot and you get a point, but the fighter that knocked the guy down because he can't jump on him and end the fight deserves some extra credit. In the UFC, you can jump on the guy and end the fight. I don't know that you deserve the extra point for the knockdown just philosophically anyway. The point is, it was a close fight the first time. The rematch was close. Dana White correctly pointed out that Woodley said he was going to win decisively. He didn't. And he's not a dominant champion by UFC standards. Of course, you understand why the fighter's offended. He is the champion, the promoter, and he is more than a promoter, but he's also the promoter, is talking negatively he feels about him, so I understand the reaction. But I basically agree with Dana's sentiment, and the reason Dana has one of the reasons he's popularized the sport, and we talk about him, is because he shoots straight. He tells you what he thinks, and it's refreshing. It'd be as though Goodell or someone like that in the NFL shot you straight all the time and told you just what he was thinking, and I think the fans appreciate it.
I disagree with you. I don't think that Dana White was right in this, and I don't side with him. And I don't have a relationship with Dana White that spans 15 years. But we talk on occasion. I've known him for years. I like him a great deal. I think he's tremendous for the UFC, and I think he's tremendous for sports overall. My issue in what I really have a problem with, I don't care about he's a part owner and all of that. You're the promoter. You're that guy. You can't do that to that man immediately after the fight. Can't do that. That's not right. You don't, because there's something to that. That guy is a warrior. Tyron Woodley goes into the ring. He handles his business. It was a tough fight against Stephen Thompson. Beat him for the second consecutive time. You go into that ring. You fight your tail off and what have you. You feel disrespected, but you didn't name Dana White. And Dana White then calls you out for promising that you were going to do something.
That's what Dana does. He's done it so many times, Stephen A. Repeatedly.
We didn't. People can do a lot of things that don't make them right. We're debating right and wrong.
Yeah.
We're not debating
when
whether or not
Dana
he does
gets
it.
behind the fighter and blows him up as the promoter, same thing in boxing or another. When you think there's money there. So John Bones Jones was promoted heavily. Once upon a time, Tito Ortiz, because they thought they could make money. They were excited.
Ladies and gentlemen, I have that. I got it, y'all. I'm not just, I get that part. I'm talking about his comments about a fighter immediately after the fight. There's no place for that. The guy showed up. He fought. He wasn't as good as you wanted him to be. He wasn't as good as he thought he was going to be. Stephen Thompson's pretty tough. I'm shocked he survived the first fight that they had. You get up in there. You put yourself on the line. You don't need the promoter speaking out against you at that particular moment.
You just proved again that you're the best fighter in the world in your division, and your promoter says something negative. That's all you know. On the other hand, it's not like Dana made something up or said something that wasn't
but nobody sees.
And that's not unusual. That's what I'm saying. He's not pegging him when he talks about the race in those comments.
But Molly, we're not debating whether it's usual or not. We're debating whether it's right or wrong.
No matter who it is.
I'm saying it doesn't matter who it is. You're the promoter promoting the fight. Listen, Ronda Rousey got her butt kicked when she went into the ring. God bless her. I wish her nothing but the best. She had no business in that octagon against Amanda Nunes. She had no business in there. How come we didn't look at Dana White and have a discussion there about him then? No, listen, I'm sorry. We didn't sit up there and say
Dana White.
We did. I said it was a mistake.
I don't mean us. I'm not talking about us. I'm talking about what if people were in the octagon like, how could you have them in the ring together? Would that be appropriate? No, it would not. I'm sorry, it's not right to do something like that to somebody immediately after a fight, any more than it would have been right to do that to Dana White immediately after the fight while she was in the octagon. That wouldn't have been wrong.
I think there was commentary along the lines that you're discussing.
Oh, I didn't hear that. I watched it.
Fortunately, we are out of time. A night after losing to the Suns on a buzzer beater, the Celtics gave up 41 fourth-quarter points in a 116-102 loss to the Clippers, something Isaiah Thomas was not happy about. Quote, "We should have won this game. We should have won Sunday night in Phoenix. We can't be experimenting in Game 63. It's just the way we lost tonight. That was unacceptable. We lost the game in the last 15 minutes of the game. We played a really good game up until the last 15 minutes, and that's the players' fault, the coach's fault. That's everybody in this locker room's fault. We could have done a lot better." Stephen A., Isaiah Thomas calling everybody out. What do you make of his comments? Or do you have a problem with them?
Well, I don't have a problem with it, number one. I don't view it as him going at the Brad Stevens, but I do view him as him putting Brad Stevens and everybody on notice. We need to pay attention to what's going on here. You got to remember that the Boston Celtics and, the Washington Wizards are nip and tuck for the number 2 and 3 seed, respectfully. Assuming that the season ends that way, you have a situation where Game 7, a potential Game 7, and that's a series that could potentially go Game 7, would be on a home court of the number 2 seed. It's very, very important. You don't need to be taking games for granted. And if you're Isaiah Thomas, you're 27 years of age. Yes, you're somewhat of a defensive liability, but you're averaging 29.5 points a game. When Jamal Crawford, JC, my nickname for him is And1 for the Clippers, this brother can boogie on anybody, particularly when he gets hot. He's special. This dude catches fire last night. You got to a situation where you just knew you wasn't going to stop them. They go on a 21-7 run against Boston with Isaiah Thomas on the bench. You're 27 years of age. You got to have him out on that court, particularly when he wants to be out there. You got to put him on Austin Rivers if you have to, but do something. I mean, you got to do. You can't just have him on the bench. He's averaging 29.5 points a game. If nothing else, he can help stop the bleeding by what he does on the offensive end of the floor. And so in that regard, I think what we peel from this is that the playoffs are approaching. They hear the Washington Wizards nipping and tucking at their heels, and they recognize this is something that we got to take seriously, and we can't take games for granted. And even though we like Brad Stevens because he's Mr. Butler, he's very, very intelligent, and he's a bright young coach, I'm a fan of his. At the same time, you can't have a league MVP candidate averaging 34 minutes a game for you, by the way, at age 27, averaging 29.5 points a game, sitting on the bench at that time. Just can't do it.
Look, I love me some Isaiah Thomas. He probably shouldn't have said this publicly about the coach. I do think he's going at the coach. He's upset because he wasn't on the floor during the run, right, and where the Clippers come back. They had a 13-point lead. The Celtics did. And I understand his frustration. What was interesting to me is he said, for the most part, I let him coach. I let him coach. In other words, the reason Isaiah Thomas
that's a key phrase right there.
At 5'9" is a star in MVP conversation is his self-view. He views himself as a star. He always has. He's always been underrated until this year. I loved him when he was in Sacramento. I wish the Lakers, I was doing radio at the time in LA. I begged the Lakers to sign him on the air every day. You have to be amazed at what he's doing, but I'm not surprised that he's an excellent player. But really what's happening here, that's the takeaway. He sees himself as a star. Yep. He's kind of showing you he's alpha. He lets the coach do things. That's actually good news for the Celtics. What's really happening here, though, the big picture, Horford goes down with an injury. Yep. And they blow 2 late leads because they can't match up defensively. And the reason Isaiah's not on, though I agree with you, Stephen A., I'd keep him on the floor. But the reason he's not is because they need defensive help. So they put better defensive players on the floor and bigger players at his position on the floor, which is you can defend that call. I don't agree with it, but you can defend it. And if you're Isaiah Thomas, obviously you're going to be upset. So the big picture for Celtics fans, you got a star. Yeah. He's an alpha. It's good news. Wait till Horford gets back. I think it'll right the ship.
Yeah, maybe don't tell the media, but you like the Pitbull mentality.
The Wizards are a game and a half behind the Boston Celtics, but they are tied in the loss column. It's just that Boston has played 3 more games. Boston's 40-24. The Wizards are 37-24. So essentially, if the Wizards were to go on a 3-game winning streak, they're tied. That's a problem.
Yeah.
And if you're Isaiah Thomas, why are the Boston Celtics 40-24? It's the number one reason.
Isaiah Thomas is the
There
number
we
one
go.
reason.
He's the number one reason. So regardless of defensive liability, sometimes when folks are brilliant, Max, you understand, they're highly intellectual and stuff like that. They tend to overthink things at times, Max Kellerman. These are the kind of things that happen. The simplistic things in the world, they make far more complicated than it needs to be. Brad Stevens is a brilliant guy, a brilliant young coach. By the way, what level of brilliance is required to sit up there and look down the bench and say, Avery Bradley, Marcus Smart, Crowder, Al Horford, or do I take that guy right there that's averaging 29 and a half points a game for me? Maybe I should I put him on the floor? It's not that complicated. It's not that complicated. It just isn't. It just isn't.
Let's move on.
A few days ago, New Orleans Pelicans coach Alvin Gentry actually mentioned Kawhi Leonard in the same breath as Michael Jordan. Now, I could easily go off, of course, disgusted at the nerve, the unmitigated gall for anyone to mention a rising star in the same breath as the GOAT himself. But I know what some of you out there will say. You'll remind me that Kawhi is the reigning 2-time Defensive Player of the Year, that he's averaged better than 20 points per game the last 2 postseasons, that he's never shot worse than 47% in his regular season career, that he's doing it now, in the midst of a season that could very well end with him capturing his first league MVP honor. But here's what I'll ask in response to Gentry's proclamation. Where's Kawhi's MJ moment to warrant comparisons to MJ? Where's the 63-point explosion at Boston? Or the simple postseason dominance for that matter? Did you know that while Kawhi averaged over 48% shooting over the last 2 regular seasons, that number dipped to just over 36% in the postseason? Do I need to bring up how he couldn't stop the bleeding in last year's Western Conference semifinals versus Oklahoma City when LaMarcus Aldridge was a no-show from games 3 through 6? Keep in mind, the last 2 seasons of MJ's postseason career, he shot 47% from the field in the 4th quarter. When it counts, people, which was slightly up from his regular season average. He averaged better than 30 points per game for 7 straight seasons and averaged better than 30 points per game for 12 straight postseasons. In other words, while Kawhi could be mentioned with anyone on a defensive side of the ball, perhaps Gentry should pump the brakes just a touch when we're talking offensive production. Even though he's got 23 games of 30 points or more this season, the man, Kawhi Leonard, had just 4 games like that coming into this season in his entire career. Now, I love Kawhi. He's big time. A bona fide front runner for league MVP honors, no doubt. That is all fair. But comparisons to MJ? Blasphemous, people. Just blasphemous. Now, a comparison to Scottie Pippen? That's more like it.
That's what's weird about it. Well said. It's that Pippen is the obvious comparison. If Pippen played today, he'd have an outside shot. He'd be Kawhi Leonard.
On that note, Stephen A., we asked people on Twitter if it's a fair comparison earlier. 78% are with you saying no, you can't compare Kawhi to Jordan, right? Maybe we should have asked instead comparing him to Scottie Pippen, and then maybe it would have made a little more sense.
Yeah, maybe.
Pippen was the second best player in the league to Olajuwon. As soon as Jordan retired, the order in the NBA went Olajuwon 2, 1, Pippen 2. And without a league without LeBron, Kawhi is one of the
all I'm trying to say is when LaMarcus Aldridge was a virtual no-show for those last 4 games, and MJ would have stepped it up. That's what Kawhi has to do.
Who can you compare to MJ?